Okay, so today's lesson on elimination is pretty much your last lesson, I guess you can say, for the semester, because we are stopping here, in my class at least. But you'll need to make sure you learn this stuff, because remember that when we come back, these videos will have to be what you have to use to kind of review the material. But day 2, elimination, is pretty much very reliant upon you being able to do day 1 elimination. So if you had an issue with day 1 elimination and you still don't feel like you have the full grasp on day 1 elimination, my recommendation for you today, since you have the rest of the week, or not the rest of the week, but a couple more days to get it down, is that you should make sure that you look and ensure that you understand what's going on before you move on. Because if you're stuck on day 1, go back to day 1, master that, then come to day 2, because day 2 elimination is pretty much day 1 on steroids. So what I mean by that is, if you don't understand the questions I'm about to do in the review for the first 3, then you need to stop. You need to go back to Math XL, get some more practice on yesterday's work so you get comfortable with that. Because if you're not comfortable with the stuff that we've done up to here, or the stuff that we did the day before on the lesson before, then you're probably going to run into some issues today. But other than that, our review work, what we learned about elimination is that we were using distributive property of numbers and negatives to manipulate the information to eliminate a variable. We used opposites to eliminate those variables, and our first objective was to say, do we have anything that is an opposite already, which we do right here. So what we could do is combine our like terms. 3x and 2x make 5x. 4y's cancel out. 15 minus 10 is 5. Divide by 5. Gain the answer of x equals 1. From there, we rewrite one of our originals, 3x plus 4y equals 15. Putting our 1 in there. And solving as we have been taught in our algebra experience. Sorry, pardon the speed of writing, but I think we know how to do all that. Anyway, after that, putting that into an ordered pair, which is 1, 3, and that is what we are looking at as our answer. Again, what we learned also was to take this 1, plug it in here. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 minus 12 is negative 10, which does mean that works, and I did that without a calculator on purpose so you could see how you do that. So take the 1, plug it in, that gives me 3. Take the 3, plug it in, that gives me 12. 3 plus 12 does make 15, and so therefore we know we've got it right. B, again, review work. On the B work that we did, what we learned was that whenever nothing eliminates, that we probably want to focus on our x's. It helps to focus on x because it's in front. What we learned yesterday is that we simply wanted a 5 in front of this, so we would distribute everything by 5, turning this into 5x, 25y, and I think that's 110. And then rewrite the bottom as is. The key to this is making sure you're not lazy and trying not to rewrite the system by just writing this and leaving it as it is. Just make sure you are not, that you're actually doing that this way. Then we switch. Now this is the last time on the review is the last time I'm going to show it to you this way, but for the sake of your notes, just make sure you review carefully. But either way, 5x plus 25y equals 110. And then turn the next one, 5x minus 8y equals negative 42. That goes away. 25 minus 8, I believe, is 13. I don't know. 17. Kind of having a bad brain moment here. Happens. So 17y is equal to, I think, 68. Alright, good to know I still got it. And then divide by 17, and you end up with y equals 4. Of course, once you find out that answer, go back to one of your originals and work yourself through the problem. Giving us our answer of 2, 4, which we then check. That would be 10. 8 times 4 is 32. 10 plus 32 is 42. So we now know we got it right. Same thing here. That would be 2. That would be 22 plus 20 makes 22. So again, even without a calculator, you can kind of check that very briefly just by making sure everything's going where it needs to be. And then, of course, the last thing we saw yesterday was this one. So I'm not going to do x and y on this one, but just to make, actually I will do x and y. This is the one where we need our bottom x to be turned into a 3. And so again, you rewrite the top, you distribute the bottom. Sorry about that. 29 times 3, which is 87. You flip the bottom row. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. That's actually a preview into what I'm going to be doing, which is when I flip the bottom row, I put a negative in front of this, I scribble out my plus, make sure my negative is visible, and then I put another negative in front of that to make sure it's visible, and that saves me from having to rewrite it, which saves me from also having to multiply by a negative 3, as some of you want to think about doing. The reason I would not multiply by a negative 3 is because we are not all good at distributing a negative to other negatives, and it saves us those issues. Either way, that cancels. Negative 21y, 87 minus 24 is 63, so it'll be negative 63, which of course means that 3 of those fit into that group. 3x plus 3y is equal to 24. And as we continue, 15, and yes, x would be 5. Again, quick check. That would be 5. This would be 24. 5 plus 24 is 29, so we know we got it right. This was actually what I was meaning to say for the next part, but I think it's just not in my habit at all to keep rewriting, which is why I'm giving you now the option to do it that way, but you have to make sure that you write carefully when you do it. So anyway, the new examples, 3 examples today. First 2 are over what I say there were 3 levels yesterday. There's level 4 and what I would call level 5, which isn't really level 5, but it's just a matter of what you have to do before you get started. But level 4 is in two of these examples, and the last one is really what it's going to be about. The easiest way to do elimination is that you have to recognize that none of these things are ready to go and that I can't just multiply 1. What you want to do typically is find out where these 2 numbers meet. Now these 2 numbers do meet at 36. 6 and 9 do meet at 36, which means you could multiply this by 4. You could multiply this by 6, multiply that by 4. That would make both of those 36. But in all honesty, as long as you've got a calculator around, the easiest way to do it is to simply take this number and put it up here, take this number and put it down there. Even though your numbers get large, that's why I said it's elimination on steroids, you'll be okay. Like I said, it'll be 54x plus 45y equals whatever 62 times 9 is, which is 558. And then 54x plus 12y equals, I think, 426. Yeah. From there, again, here's what I usually do. Instead of rewriting it all, what I will do, and again, just make sure your notes are official, because when you go back to read your notes, you're going to think that you turned this into a negative 54. But once you've got it down, which is why I told you to make sure you go back, all I do is put a negative here. I scribble this out so I don't confuse it as a positive. I put a negative there, and then I make sure I put a negative in front of here. Now the issue is, some of you, whenever you see this, is you'll put a little small negative right there, which, as you notice, you can't really see it, or it gets mixed in with the equal sign. My advice is to make sure you make that negative very visible, because otherwise you're going to misread it. Anyway, when you go to do that, your x's go away. 45 minus 12, I believe, is 33. And 558 minus 426 is 132. You then divide by 33, which is 4. From there, again, go on through, work that out, check your answer, and go from there. I am going to put 3 dots on this because I don't think you really need to keep seeing me work through the second equation, because it's pretty much stuff from yesterday. Again, as long as you got yesterday down, you know how to find the second number. But the most important number here is the 4. Plug it in there. Actually, you could do it in your head at this point. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract your 20. That makes 42, which makes x 7. But as I said, just make sure you understand what's going on. Don't do the work in your head on the quiz this week or on anybody else's test, because they'll probably mark you wrong. But I just want to make sure you know how to get the first answer on that. B, again, because this is what it is, I want to make sure we focus on the most important part. The easiest thing is to bring up by 5, bring down by 3, and then make sure we work it out carefully from there. So we end up with 15x minus 35y equals negative, what am I doing, negative 110. Thought I was multiplying by 3 for a second. Then we end up with 15x minus 9y equals negative 6. And again, when I go to switch the bottom, I switch here. My negative I turn into a plus, my negative I turn to a plus. That's how I turn my negatives into pluses. And that, like I said, that way I know what's going on. 35 minus 9, I believe, is negative 26, I hope. So negative 26y would make, I think that's negative 104. Just hoping we can divide them, which we can. That gets the answer of y is equal to 4 when we divide by negative 26. And again, go through, put your 4 up, and put your 4 in there. Do all the algebra necessary. Again, 3 dots means you know what to do after that. Don't not do it when it counts. So don't take the quiz, get to y equals 4, and stop. That is a bad habit. The good news is the computer won't let you do that. But like I said, what I get a lot of times, or sometimes, is a student who, when I take notes like this, and then they put the 3 dots, when they take the quiz, they get the answer for y, and they stop. But remember, you don't have your final answer until you know what x is, because your final answer is an ordered pair. It's just my opinion to believe that if you're at this point and you understood how to do yesterday's work, then you know how to take that number and plug it back in. So there's no need in wasting more of your minutes of your lesson watching me find the second number. I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. And C, which is your major problem. The issue with C is that things are not lined up. You have 5x equals negative 7y plus 17. You have negative 5y equals negative 7x plus 9. You've got a lot going on. You can't do substitution. You can't do elimination because things aren't lined up. The best thing for you to do, and write this for your notes, is to make sure you put this in standard form. As long as you can convert it to standard form, it should be easy. And here's the nice thing about standard form. We know for a fact, because hopefully you've done algebra long enough at this point, that if I was to move this to that side, that if it's negative over here, it would be positive over there. That if it was positive over here, that it would be negative over here. So what I'm going to do in standard form, x goes first. So I'm going to rewrite this as 5x plus 7y, because that's how I would move my 7y if you remember doing that, equals 17. Again, 5x is positive. 7y is going to move and become positive. 17 is going to come down as positive. Over here, when I move my x over, again, x goes first, so this should be 7x minus 5y equals 9. Again, moving this to the front because it's x. This keeping where it is stays negative, and 9 stays positive because 9 did not move. Once we do that, this problem is very easy to do. Multiply the top by 7, multiply the bottom by 9, 35x 49y equals, I don't know, 119. Yep. 35x minus 25y equals 45. And again, in switching, switch to first, switch to second. Make sure your negative is visible on the third, especially over here. The issue I see is people hiding their negative there. Don't do that. The x's go away. 49 plus 25 is 674. 119 minus 45 is 74. Divide by 74, of course you get the answer of y equals 1. Sorry for being inconsistent on sometimes whenever I divide, other times when I don't. But again, take your y, plug it back into your original. It actually works a little bit better here, because when I do a 1 in here, that turns into a negative 7. Negative 7 and 17 make, what, 10, and then divide that by 5. You would know that x is equal to 2. But again, just make sure you do this officially on your test. Now, on a standardized test, you could just kind of do that in your head and check. But my advice, especially on a test, is to make sure you show that discipline of where those numbers came from, which is doing this part right here. and then checking to make sure that when I put a 2 right here, that makes negative 14 plus 9, which is, I think, negative 5. And then putting a 1 over here is also a negative 5, which means that because negative 5 equals negative 5, that we got it right. So again, make sure you go to your Math Excel, do your best on that, and again, make sure you are working to get things done. What I explained in one of my hours yesterday was that some of you forget how close you were in messing up your grade. This quarter is still going, the semester is still going. Please work like you were in trouble, and don't forget that you were that close to messing up your grade. So please work and make sure you use your time wisely, because if you don't, you're going to put yourself into a bad position right before the semester's over. So good luck.